While initially, browser hijacker might not seem very glamorous, the volume of these downloads that we saw just made it impossible to ignore. Stork is a pay-per-install provider that's responsible for the malvertising or the search engine optimization that gets the user to download their customers' malware. We differentiate it from Chrome Loader and other payloads that it provides by the naming of the files themselves. So we notice this distinctive pattern of cracked games, software, wallpaper, downloads, and often for each hash, we would see a whole bunch of different file names, including a default file name of your file is ready to download. A lot of times in reporting, we saw this all listed as Chrome Loader because for a long time, it always led to Chrome Loader. But this year, we started seeing additional payloads like Smashjacker. And in August, we also saw it delivering VileRat, which is a Python remote access Trojan. For Charcoal Stork specifically, because we define it as that pay-per-install provider, everything up to the click of the user, there's not a whole lot defenders can do except for user education. But adversaries are very good at social engineering, so there's always going to be somebody that clicks. So beyond that, I think paying attention to what payloads Charcoal Stork is delivering, since it does have such a high click rate, like Chrome Loader or Smashjacker or VileRat, as we saw this past year, paying attention to the TTPs of that malware to try and catch it once it's run in your environment.